Okay, in this video, I want to grant you about verbs that there are some lists that are fairly stable. In other words, there are some verbs that will very likely, very often, really be verbs. They rarely change, like hit and run and shovel. I shovel dirt. The shovel is big. I mean, these words just change all over the place. You can't really go by lists there. But there are a few lists that make sense to know because you have a very high chance that that word, if you see it, is going to be a verb. All right, and the first of these lists is what is known as the to be verbs. Okay, and here you have the is, the was, the am, the are, the will be, I will be here, the were, we were ready to go, she was cooking, the dog is lying on the driveway. These are your to be verbs. There are more, but we'll just stop there. You should be familiar with this. Maybe find online or in a book a list of to be verbs. Then you have helping verbs. Okay, now by themselves they may or not be verbs, but these are going to be, they're helping verbs in the sense that they occur they occur with other verbs and almost always before them. Well, yes, before them some way. Sometimes immediately before, and sometimes there's a word that might come between them, but they're going to be before the other verb, and they go together. Okay, as a collective verb. But it's something like I have been, I have been studying. Okay. Well, what's the verb here? I had been studying. I have been studying. I will have been studying. So it's coming before this, but these three actually are all together. Now this is the tricky part here. If you can learn how to recognize when a verb is actually the verb, because this alone as a word can sometimes be something other than a verb. Like studying is a discipline you should develop. In that case, studying is a noun and it's a subject. It's not a verb. Here, though, it is part of a verb, and so you should be able to kind of recognize, hey, these three words are working together as a unit. All right. Let me think of another two-word verb. You were watching the show. Okay. So how would you move this through time? You were watching the show. You are watching the show. You will be watching the show. This is the word that changes. So technically, with the time tester, you might think, well, this is the verb. But it really is going together with this one. Okay. Now, when you do have a two-word or three-word verb happening, usually the second part of it is going to end in ing, or it'll end in an ed sound, like a ed or a he looked, he felt, he shoveled, he was shoveled, he had shoveled. Okay. But it's just not, I can't think of any surefire formula. You just have to recognize by the sense of the meaning, or just because you're familiar with this after seeing it and reading it so many times, that this is a two-word verb. Okay, so what I really want to say is, look, let's call it this. Let's call it multiple word verb. Okay, and the idea is you might have a two-word verb or a three-word verb. We don't have to think in terms of, is it a helping verb, is it an auxiliary verb? Sometimes the helping verbs are called auxiliary verbs, and they're the ones that seem to come before the main verb, and so they seem to be helping the sense be construed or developed. But let's just call it multiple word verbs, and they really do have a lot to do with the helping verbs. Okay. So if you were to look at lists, I think you would be helped looking at list of to be verbs and then looking at list of helping verbs, just to see what they look like and to realize the majority of the time when you see these in a group of words, they're going to be part of the verb. Now, there are always exceptions. I'm not going to say this is 100% sure, but you will have a really good chance that it's a verb, and you can learn these through lists. They certainly would help knowing the lists.